All right, good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, January 23rd, and unbelievably, we are beginning our third week of an 8-week class, what you said. I was thinking it's the 29th, and it's the third week of an 8-week class, so we're just like moving through. But like you said, it's Monday, right? So yeah, tonight we're going to talk about the difference between danger, opportunity, and risk. And the major reason, we need to define that before we can start doing risk analysis, but the reason that we need to do it pretty carefully is because when you refine your topic for your paper, it has to be a risk. And I had made an assumption last year when I taught this course for the first time, and that assumption was that we could kind of go ahead and do risk analysis as we were writing the paper, but it occurred to me later, I had two people who sort of missed the mark and didn't really get at the idea of risk in their paper. So we're gonna kind of take a breath and do a few things and make sure that we're all on the right page before we move on. So having said that, let's take a look at our screen and we will look at what's going to happen in terms of risk analysis this week. So the first thing that we're going to do is to break down what is the difference between risk, danger, and opportunity. So last year, what I did was I had written up some notes to sort of define these things and how they all fit together. Now, Ivan, can you see, does your page say danger, risk, opportunity, or are you still on the Moodle page?
I'm still on the Moodle page.
Yeah, that's what it always does to me.
I can pull it up on my other computer though.
Oh, no, I'll just pull this up. I just have to do a new share. Because I see it just beautifully, and then, you know, I think everybody else can. So is that better?
Yep.
Okay, good deal. All right, so basically, one of the problems, I think, or not problems, but one of the challenges that we have in this course is defining the words danger, risk, and opportunity in the sense of the analysis in terms of a business analysis or a scientific analysis. And we're used to using those words, and we can kind of use them interchangeably, but they really mean very specific things. So when we talk about risk assessment, the first thing we have to do is make sure that we're talking about a risk. And a risk is something that is not a danger and it's not an opportunity, but it's a two-sided uncertainty is the best definition I would like to use. It means that doing it or not doing it can have positive consequences and negative consequences, and you really don't know going in, okay? So one of the things, and then I've got some examples of some bad opportunities, but one of, like perhaps a risk would be, and I actually said this wasn't a risk, but now I think about it, from this particular person's point of view, perhaps it was, so I'll go ahead and share it. But Christy knows my kids, and so my oldest son, Patrick, when he was a little kid, was in the, not in the scientific or business sense, but in the sort of everyday sense, a big risk taker. He just loved to just do the craziest things and scare me to death and try to kill himself all the time. But I remember when he was a really little kid, he said to me, he wanted to do something that was just extraordinarily dangerous in my assessment. And I said, don't do that. You might get hurt. And he thought about it for a little bit. He goes, well, but I might not get hurt and it might be fun. And I thought, oh dear, this is gonna be hard. Because to me, whatever he wanted to do had no upside. You know, I was like, there was no, it wasn't a risk. It was just a stupid, senseless, dangerous thing to do. But maybe now that I think about it more, maybe it was a risk because the upside for him would be having this really cool experience, you know, whatever it is, jumping out of a tree naked or whatever. Maybe that's your heart's desire and you know, it's something everybody's always wanted to do. But it has to be something two-sided, and it really has to be something where the outcome is not known. So That's what we're talking about with the risk. So the first thing that we're gonna do with our topics that we're talking about, that you've written your introductions for, and so far the ones I've read, every one of them will work. They'll have to be refined a little bit, but they will work. And we have to decide, we have to write the statement, we're gonna have to refine what we're talking about so that it is a risk, so that we're not just talking about a danger. So, Andy, can I talk a little bit about your topic from, okay. So Andy talked about, falling, right? Falling off a cliff. Yeah, would you tell us a little bit about your story and then I'll discuss this.
I was allowed to go camping with my brother, and there was no one in the group older than 14, and I was a couple of years younger than all them. We were doing dangerous stuff. And there was a cliff wall with a small footing that we all ventured across. And I was told not to look down, I didn't. So while I was going across, I knew I was going to fall. I had a few seconds to think about it.
Right, see, and that is just a great story, but like up to that point, especially as a boy mom, I just think senseless, right? I mean, but there is this nugget of risk where Andy had a moment to think about, is it going to be better for me to fall feet first or dive, you know? And he made a choice and it turned out well for him for a bunch of different reasons. But the real question that you can analyze using risk analysis is, if you're gonna fall off a cliff, are you optimizing, or is it better to go head first or feet first? You know, and then you could discuss it. You don't have to come up with it. I mean, there is an answer to that. I don't know what it is, but it's partly in how high it was, which is also an integral part of the story, which is a good thing. How many people, you know, what are the chances of dying if you go head first, and what you land in, and what the chances are of, you know, maybe breaking a bone. So maybe, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but it seems to me like if you land on your feet, maybe you're less likely to die, but maybe you're more likely to injure a major bone in your body or something. I don't know. But I mean, that would be the piece for risk analysis right there. So
On a more macro level, what I was thinking is I was looking for acceptance from these.
of course, right, see?
It was the only reason I put myself in that position.
Yes, and that's a really interesting point too, because that's an emotional need, right? I mean, it's a really subtle, I thought the whole paper was just really, really good, but it's a subtle emotional need for a young man to want to belong. And you were driven probably outside of the realm of good sense because you wanted to be one of the guys, right? And they're a little bit older than you, and well, and boys in a group, that's another story right up there. So we'll just leave that alone. But I mean, so there is this emotional drive. So that gets back to that whole idea of thinking through things, you know, which is the harder part to do. But also I think it occurred to me as we were talking about this, it's also thinking through something without a definite answer. You know, I mean, that it's human nature. It's easier thinking to find something that is a sure bet and just to go with that. But really, when we're talking about risk analysis, we don't know the outcome. The outcome is really unknown to us, and it could go either way. So we're trying to think about what might happen, you know, and try to project what's more likely to happen. And then also in terms of analysis, is it worth it? You know, I mean, if you have to bet $5,000 to make $5, those odds better be really good because nobody's getting my $5,000, you know what I mean? Or, you know, like that. So there's a lot of different ways to think about it. So, but it's an unknown outcome. And it's also, I think adventure stories like Deep Survival are really good for this because there are a lot of outcomes in a lot of the vignettes that Larry Gonzalez uses where you don't know the outcome or there's a lot of factors that figure into it. You know, another student, and I won't use her name since she's not here, I would ask her otherwise, talked about a driving experience where there's a long distance to be covered and somebody was very tired and it was very late at night and then the weather got bad. Well, you know, that's just like, I mean, if you're gonna make a long trip, but it's a beautiful day and you've had plenty of sleep and your car's in great condition, the weather's good, that changes the scenario. you know, and that weather piece makes a big difference. So those are the sort of things that we're talking about, risk, not full-on danger. So danger is a one-sided uncertainty, okay? And what you want to do with a danger is you don't want to manage it, you want to minimize it, okay? And so if you treat a danger as a risk, it is called heartless. And if you treat a danger as an opportunity, that's called thrill-seeking. So, and that's where I came down with my son when I think he was a thrill seeker. It was dangerous. He was treating it as a thrill, but really maybe he was doing his own little work, little risk management as well. Treating danger as a risk is called heartless. There's a couple of articles that I want you to read this week that I've posted up to the Moodle page about Ford Pintos in the 1970s. And some of you may be aware of this, but there was a time where the gas tanks, if they were rear-ended, the Ford Pinto had a really high risk of exploding. And you know, cars are inherently very dangerous. And I say that as somebody who, I love having my car and I would drive, I mean, I wish to drive, but there are dangers involved in it that you just need to minimize. So Ford, I actually found the old original memo, which is written with a typewriter. Somebody asked them a question about, that kind of led them into doing a risk analysis of the danger. You should never do a risk analysis where you say, oh, well, the Ford Pinto, yeah, it explodes 1 in 400 times, but if we have this many Pintos on the road and they drive this many miles and they have this many people who are burned or maimed or killed, that's a risk that, I mean, they never said that's a risk that we're willing to accept, but that's not a risk, that's a danger. You know, I mean, there is no upside to having people die in explosions in a car. You should not look at that as being a risk. So I don't really think after I read the original memo that that's really what Ford was doing. I think they were just led to do this through an investigative panel, but it's very chilling to think about doing something like that, to say to them, yeah, it's going to happen, see, no risk, it is going to happen, but it's only going to happen this much, only this many people are going to get killed, and oh, on the upside, Ford gets a bunch of money because we sell a bunch of Pintos. That's bad, that's just bad all the way around. So not risk management, looks like risk management, not risk management. And opportunity is something that's a one-sided certainty. You know, if you buy, well, I don't know, I can't think of anything about buy that's really going to be a one-sided certainty, but I'm thinking about a very safe stock. You know, if you buy a share of mortgage, no, I know, let's do this. You buy a CD, you get a CD at a bank, and you hold it for 11 months. And because they're uncertain of the interest rates, they give you a higher interest rate for 11 months. Well, after 11 months, what could happen? The interest rate could go up or it could go down or it could stay the same. So at that point, you would have an opportunity to reinvest that CD. You might have to lose, you might have to take a penalty, you might have to lose a period of interest, but like if the interest rates went up, you could reinvest it, or you could keep it in at the same interest rate for the 11 months, and then you could pull it out into something else. So that's an opportunity because there's really no downside to it. The downside is like, if you don't pull it out at the right time, or you decide for some reason to take it out of a 5% thing and invest it in a 1% thing, you know, that would be a bad idea, but there's no real downside to that. You're not gonna lose your money, you're just gonna make more money or less money. And so you wanna minimize, you want to take a, you wanna look at that as an opportunity that you would like to optimize, okay? Now, the thing about some people will perceive danger or risk or opportunity is actually what's going on. Those might be the people who take that money for the CD and bury it in a jar in their yard, okay? Well, you'll still have, if you have $15,000 and you put it in a mason jar in your backyard, you're still gonna have $15,000. It's just what if inflation kind of gobbles it up. So you still got the money, so you really haven't done a loss, but you really haven't grown either. So you have to kind of get out there a little bit, and interact with the world. Sometimes everybody has a different capacity for that. Some people are huge risk takers, some people are not as big risk takers. But when we talk about risk, that's what we're gonna hone in on with your paper, is finding something that's not a danger, which is all downside, or same or downside, or all opportunity, which is same or upside. You gotta get something that could go either way, and the outcome is not really known. All right, so we have to, when we start doing risk assessment, and this is what the nature of this course is. Generally speaking, in a course like this, when you talk about risk analysis, you really talk about highly quantitative things. And I think I might have told you this, but last year I had a woman who did a paper on cryptocurrency that was full on classical risk analysis. It was a beautiful paper. But I also had people who did like papers on, you know, if you're flying in an airplane, if you're gonna jump out of an airplane as a student skydiver, is it safer to stay with the airplane, or is it safer to jump out of the airplane with your instructor? You know, both of them have risks, right? And generally speaking, it's not terribly dangerous, but there is some dangerous. Plane could wreck, chute could not go off, instructor could be on a suicide mission. I don't know. You know, I mean, there's a lot, pilot could be on a suicide mission, lots of stuff could go wrong. So, and you don't know what it is. So you're always kind of like weighing things, you know? I thought about this. Let me think if this would be a risk analysis. This might be a risk analysis. Let's think about it for a little bit. A few years ago, I had watched a show on TV. It was like 60 Minutes or something, about people who were having surgery done in India. And the reason that they were doing it was sometimes it would be like for a hip replacement or a joint replacement that was not fully approved in the US. So they could go to India and have the newest, coolest, best, most high-tech joint put in earlier than they could have it done here. It was a lot cheaper. I mean, like a 10th or even a 20th as much. And instead of recovering in a hospital or at home, you would recover at a beautiful health spa, okay? And then the other upside that the patient stated was all of the doctors and nurses at these clinics in India had been educated and trained in the United States. So it's American-style hospital, American-trained doctors, and a tenth of the cost. Well, that sounds really good. What kind of risks do you think you might incur? Just thinking about that, having surgery in India.
You have to get to India.
You have to get to India. Very good. Did
If something were to go wrong.
Yes. Yes, you don't have the protection of being at home with your family doctor, right? You're in India when if something goes wrong. Yeah.
It could even almost be a language barrier, you don't know.
Yes, another good point. See, so those are, I mean, that kind of stuff matters. Did you have another one, or were you going with this? Yes. Yeah.
Complications.
So,
Getting home.
yeah. Ivan or Jason, do you have anything to add? Any kind of complications you might think of?
No, nothing right now.
Okay, but yeah, so I mean, that's one, I hadn't thought of that till tonight, so I don't know if it's a really good example. I'll have to ponder it a little bit, but you know, that's definitely a risk analysis. And you know, I know people who like go to Mexico to have their dental work done. I also kind of think, I don't know, I mean, like you said, I think being away from home is kind of scary, you know, I mean, not being around your family doctor or your family. I don't know, a lot of people have wonderful success and then they have $20,000 in their pocket that I don't have, so there you go.
A more recent one would be the taking care of my trial that just happened. I don't know if anyone
No,
watches or keeps up with that kind of stuff.
tell, what is it, tell us.
She was a young girl who had some rare nerve type disease. And they
Yes.
took her to Mexico, and the treatment is to basically put her in a coma. So they had to go to Mexico to do that.
Sure,
She gets a little bit better, they come back to the United States and they go to Johns Hopkins Hospital. And basically they think she's being abused by her mother. So
oh,
they take the kid away.
oh
The
dear,
mother ends up committing suicide. And this one was just going on, there's a Netflix movie about it.
Oh dear.
She was awarded $253 million, I think,
See,
for being kidnapped and abused by the hospital.
you see?
So, yeah, she went to Mexico.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Stay there.
That's, and I mean, there are risks associated with that, I mean, I think that's a really good point. And sometimes I personally, I'm not trying to convince anybody, I'm just gonna say I personally love being a citizen of the United States, but sometimes I can see where maybe somebody else, another country might do something better, and I don't know, I mean, there's some choices involved in that, I mean, our government really wants to protect us from doing harm, and our medical establishment is like, first do no harm, and, so I mean, we tend to err on the side of extra safety, so I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of things like that, but that's a very good point, So when we're doing risk assessment, the ultimate question is, should I do this? Or should a person do this? I had suggested to Lillian last week, since she works at the annex and she's involved with vaccination, like it would be really cool to see a comparison of the risks of being vaccinated for a particular illness versus the risks of not being vaccinated. Now, and we know, I mean, people can be allergic to thimerosal, they can be allergic to eggs if it's grown in the egg culture. You just have some bad reaction. There's some, I don't know how valid it is, so I'm not saying it's valid or invalid, I just don't know. That if children have a lot of shots on the same day, it's harder than them. I just took like I said, my mom was an RN, I got vaccinated for everything, I took my kids out, it's like, you 6 today, that's great, I don't even know. But I don't do them all, do me at the same time and give me a tetanus booster, So I mean, I'm a big fan of vaccines, so I know where I would land on this. Other people, maybe they have other opinions, or the opinion piece is the problem, right? We don't want to talk about people's opinion, we want to do like the fact-based research. What are the odds that you're gonna come up allergic to thimerosal? What are the odds that you're gonna have a bad reaction to a live or partially killed virus, as opposed to what are the outcomes if you get a terrible disease? So there's probably, there's some really good stuff there. There would be some really good stuff. And once again, we can't say ever, oh, absolutely get every single vaccine on the same day. And we can't say don't ever be vaccinated. It's like, that's where the risk comes in. So don't we live in a fun world? I always think, when I think about stuff like this, I think there's a lot of easy ways to think about things, and there's a lot of difficult, complex ways to think about things. And risk analysis, whether it's in your daily life or if it's in a class like this, is a complex way of thinking about things. Because there isn't really a right or a wrong answer, but there's really good answers and there's really bad answers, and then there's your personal opinion. Not opinion, your capacity for risk. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So we have to think about what our goal is for risk analysis. What is my goal? What is my mother's goal for taking her to Mexico and putting her in a medically induced coma? To clear up this neurological problem that she had, right? That's a clear, specific goal. The goal has to be consistent with all laws and regulations. I find this to be very important. I have never been to jail, ever, and it is my goal to never go to jail. So it does not look like fun to me, so I'm not gonna do it if I can possibly help it. Goal also has to be realistic, something you can accomplish, or else it is a dream, okay? Fantasies are dandy, but that's not what we're talking about. And a goal has to reflect the skills that define your institution and reflect your core competencies. So like, if I were to say, Northwest College has a decrease in students, and we picked up a whole bunch of, this is true, when we picked up a whole bunch of applications last year, when we had members of our wrestling team had encountered a grizzly bear, we got applications from all over the place. well, it would be foolish to say, well, what we need is some more grizzly bears attacking some wrestlers and there was lots of students. I think that's a bad solution. It does not reflect the core competencies of Northwest College. So we have to think about what we're good at and what we actually do. Okay, so in conclusion, you mitigate danger, you manage risk, and you seize opportunity. And then we just have to channel our inner Warren Buffett, be clear-headed and disciplined, and don't decide based on emotion. Keep thinking about it. All right, I'm gonna take a look at our Moodle page, but before that, does anyone have any questions? All right, anyone over here? Okay.
Well, you missed the opportunity on the bear attack.
Yes.
They lived to tell about it.
Now that's the thing, right?
It's all shades of gray. I guess.
Yes, well, yeah, seriously, there's some truth to that, because how that all happened, that's pretty amazing stuff. All right, so, let's see, we did discussion forum 1, and we also did discussion forum 2. Jason, I did not get a post from you, so if you would do that on discussion forum 2, I would appreciate it, so I can get that graded maybe today or tomorrow.
Okay, I can do that right after class.
Okay, thank you very much. So our writing assignment is quiz 1 over deep survival. I have one person who's turned it in already, so that was pretty amazing. But it's not due until Sunday, February 4th, which is almost a week. But basically right above it is the discussion guide for deep survival. There's like 12 questions, just pick 3, anything, just write a couple paragraphs. Just make them nice. They don't have to be, gorgeous, just readable and intelligible and some good thoughts. And I can tell this class is gonna have good thoughts, so that's a good thing. So for our class, there's 2 recorded lectures, the class meeting and the lecture. Those were recorded last year, but the content, I went through them, I read them, I watched them today, which is not one of my favorite things to watch my old videos, but they're still valid. It's what I would have said today if I hadn't said it last year. So if you will watch those, and then the lecture notes we just went through, then some reading assignments. The original Ford Pinto memo, I kind of want to show this to you because let's get a new share here so the Zoomies can see it, right? It is not long, but it's weird to read because as you can see, it was written on a typewriter. So basically when and I want you to read this because it really does give that flavor of when you shouldn't analyze things in our risk using risk analysis. That's kind of the takeaway from the Ford Pinto. And also just how bizarre it is to build things that are dangerous to people. So, we read that one, and then a decade or so later, or maybe, we don't want to see Martin Sten things. Okay, let me find it. We'll share something else. Nobody cares about Martin Sten things memo to me. Let's see. Here it is. Go over here. Share screen. We want this one. All right. About a decade or maybe more than that, there's a magazine called Mother Jones News. It's kind of a progressive hippie magazine, and they did an expose on that Pinto memo that they got a hold of. So it's a nice balance where you can see both sides of stuff, and there's just a lot of good back and forth and a lot of good comparative discussion in those 2, but they're both pretty short. This is really short, the reading assignment, how much are your body's parts worth? And this has always just struck me as so strange. Yes, crazy. That your body parts are valued. If you're injured at work and you lose a body part, the value of that body part changes over time. It also changes from state to state. So you can see, for example, that if you lose your ear, that you could, the maximum is, if you live in Oregon, you get $124,991 for that ear. And in Colorado, your ear is worth less than $10,000. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's just weird to me though, to think that you have to, I mean, workers' compensation, like assigns a value, which is a risk analysis, but it also kind of makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense in the sense that, well, okay, this is why it makes sense. Because if you're injured, if you have a job, there's a chance you'll be injured in some way. And of course, some jobs are more dangerous than others. So for my job, for teaching, I don't really have a lot of dangers. The most dangerous thing I probably do is drive back and forth to work every day, right? It's not really a high level risk, but there are people who work on oil rigs who are in extreme danger all the time. So if they lose a body part, it may impinge on their ability to do their job. And so there has to be a monetary compensation for that. But it's just a weird, it's kind of an icky thought, really, to think about putting about a dollar value, but it's not like you can say, here, I'm gonna give you my thumb, I'm gonna move to Kentucky and give you my thumb and get $195,000. It's just like, it's in the event of an unforeseen something occurring. So, but it's just a really strange idea. So, anyway, but so take a look at that. That's not even really, it's a reading assignment, but it's just to look over it and see what you think. And then we have this is just an opportunity, risk versus opportunity, describing the difference between those two. And then it shows it as a link, but it's just a link to an article. It's not really a video. And then the last one is this reading assignment, Northwest Energy's Risk of Buying Power Ahead. So this is something that I find really interesting. In the United States, every state regulates electrical power. And the state of Wyoming is a regulated state, meaning, do you guys remember a few weeks ago, or maybe a couple of months ago, this MDU, or no, Pacific Power and Light, Rocky Mountain Power, had requested a 28% raise in rates, okay? And what happened was, everybody was horrified, obviously, but Rocky Mountain Power took that to our regulating agency, the Public Service Commission, and presented their documents about why they wanted to raise the rates by 28%. And PSC said, no, nothing that you've done and nothing that you're paying justifies raising the rates by 28%. So they were granted about a 5 or 6% raise, which is in keeping with inflation. So I was really happy. I thought the system worked, it's all good. Well, in Montana, the electrical power monopoly used to be the Montana Power Company, and 25 or 30 years ago, power in Montana was deregulated, which means buyer beware, basically. So this is just an article recently from the Billings Gazette, where Northwest Energy, which is the company that followed the Montana Power Company, ended up having to buy electrical power on this when the rates got when the temperature got so cold, they were afraid they were going to destabilize the grid, and so they bought power at an excruciatingly high rate, which happens. They call power brokers. People trade power on sort of like an exchange all the time. But if you have to buy it under certain conditions, prices are quite high. And the power that they were buying was about $70 per unit, which is a megawatt hour. And when this influx came and they had to like hedge on getting some power at this really high rate, instead of paying $70, you're paying $1,000. So, and there's nowhere for Northwestern Energy to absorb that cost. That is just a pass-through cost. That's just like you pay transmission and blah, 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 and they pay services, but the $1,000 goes directly to the consumer. I mean, nobody's gonna pay $1,000, but the cost is just a pass-through cost. So it's kind of like if you have a realtor and you can get a house, you can have a realtor buy you a house, you can't say, well, that was too expensive, I want you to give it to me for less, because the broker doesn't really own the house. Same with electrical power. Northwest Energy doesn't really own power. They just buy the power and then deliver it to you. So it's a very strange little story, but it's just a newspaper article from the Billings Gazette. Take a look at that and see what you think. And then we'll do a discussion forum. I want to hear your thoughts on the differences between dangers, risk, and opportunity. Same thing, make a post after you read these things, watch the videos, comment on your classmates, and call it a day. And then I just put up this little quote, where there's danger, there lurks opportunity. Whenever there's opportunity, there lurks danger. The two are inseparable, they go together. And I think that is really more than talking about danger and opportunity, it's more talking about risk. You know, it's just a little vernacular quote. So then the second writing assignment, or the second quiz, the first quiz is one you're going to do over deep survival. The second one is just a couple of paragraphs, but I want you to write what you want your topic to be. The quiz part is, I want you to submit it to me just through this, and then I'm gonna write back to you and I'll say either, boy, that's terrific, go with that, or we need to refine it, how about this? So we need to get that topic right here by Sunday so that it's ready to write a paper on. It doesn't mean you have to have sources, you don't have to know exactly, but just so that we really define something as being a risk analysis rather than being a danger or an opportunity. So, do you guys have any questions for me? All right, so have you jumped off any cliffs lately, Andy?
Yeah. It had an effect on me. Life-changing effect, which you'll hear about in my paper.
I'm excited. See, that is exciting. That is just fantastic. Well, and I think that's a really good point too, is that when you take risks, when you look for opportunity, when you seek or don't seek danger, mitigate or don't mitigate danger, you know, it really forms you as a person more. So those are all good things. I'm not saying take the risk. I'm saying whatever you do helps you develop into a card-carrying adult. So, all right, guys out in Zoom land, you guys are good? No questions? All right. And just in closing, I will say, Bo, when I was reading, and Christy also apparently has worked with teenagers or youth who need to be restrained. I think people that work in close contact with providing services for people, you guys are living with risk every single day of your life. So good job. Glad it's not me. My son's a paramedic. I hear things from him and I'm like, wow, I'm glad I just teach people fundamentals of classical
Risk
neuroscience.
or danger.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So everybody in Zoom land, everybody here, don't forget I am available. We'll do the same kind of class next week. Oh, go ahead. No? Okay. We'll have the same class next week here, there, or on Zoom. I'll post up to the Moodle page, but don't ever hesitate to get a hold of me. That's what I'm here for. So if you need something, if you don't understand something, I don't know, I wouldn't say if you have a complaint, but if you so save that for someone else.
I do have, my attention is not always undivided.
Okay.
So when I'm watching your video,
Yes.
I thought you wanted the students last year to make a Zoom appointment.
Oh.
Is that just to practice it? Or
Yes, we did that last year.
I saw that too, I was confused.
Yeah, no, you don't have to make a Zoom appointment with me unless you want to, but if you need to, then we will. But yeah, last year I was working remotely last year, so I didn't have as much opportunity to do face-to-face. Actually, this year I knew more people in the cohort as well, but I really had some unknowns, and so I wanted them to take a few minutes and have a meeting with me. So, but we're good. So I've known most of you and the rest of you seem like upright folks, so I'm not worried. All right. All right. Sounds good. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening. Let me know if I can help, and we'll see you next week.